In 1942, scientists discovered something haunting. Prisoners of war who lost their sense of purpose collapsed in health, while those who clung to meaning, sometimes just a song, a prayer, or a memory, endured the unendurable. Now think about this. Today, in one of the wealthiest nations on Earth, fatigue is everywhere. Teenagers waking up drained before school even begins. Adults dragging themselves through work with coffee as their lifeline. Grandparents too weary to play with their grandchildren. We are not in prison camps, yet we are exhausted. Why? Because tiredness is not only about sleep, it is about the soul. And until we confront this truth, we will go on wearing out our bodies, our minds, and our hearts long before their time. This is why you feel tired all the time. The first burden, there is a peculiar kind of tiredness that does not come from labor, nor from sleepless nights, nor from illness. It is the exhaustion that arrives when we carry things that do not belong to us. If you pause for just a moment, you may recognize this burden in your own life. It is not the ache of your muscles, but the weight of invisible loads pressing on your chest. A young student lies awake rehearsing every possible failure of tomorrow's test, even though tomorrow has not yet dawned. A mother scrolls through endless feeds comparing her children to strangers, measuring herself against shadows on a screen. An elderly man replays conversations from 30 years ago, shackled to regrets that no amount of reflection can alter. Each of these people wakes the next morning already tired, before they have even begun. There is a name for this fatigue. It is not the weariness of the body, but the weariness of the soul. Science has only recently begun to catch up to what prophets and poets have always known, that the mind can drain the body long before the body itself has spent its strength. Mental fatigue consumes energy at a startling rate. Researchers at the University of Basel discovered that intense worry activates the brain's prefrontal cortex in the same way heavy physical exertion strains the muscles. Your brain burns through glucose, exhausts reserves, and leaves you limp. To put it simply, your thoughts can exhaust you just as surely as running a marathon can. Yet this exhaustion is not born of necessary thought, but of unnecessary cargo. Imagine a traveler given a backpack for the road ahead. Inside it rests water, bread, a map, and a compass, all good things, all vital to survival. But then another voice appears. That voice insists the traveler must also carry stones for no reason at all. The traveler obeys, filling the pack until it crushes his shoulders. He wonders why the road feels so impossible, never realizing that most of what he bears is dead weight. That is what worry, resentment, and comparison do to us. They fill our pack with rocks we were never meant to carry. Every generation in America knows this weight, though each feels it differently. A teenager in high school worries about fitting in, performing well, being accepted to the right college. They scroll through endless faces on TikTok or Instagram, each one seeming more beautiful, more confident, more successful than their own reflection. Their energy drains not from math homework or sports practice, but from the relentless measuring of themselves against others. They are carrying lives that are not theirs. A middle-aged parent fights through traffic to get to work, haunted by the thought that they are not providing enough, not climbing fast enough, not earning the admiration their peers seem to enjoy. They hear a co-worker's promotion as a verdict against their own worth. At home, they worry about their children's future, about the mortgage, about the retirement they may never see. Their shoulders sag under weights invisible to all but themselves. Even those in old age, who have worked and sacrificed and endured, are not free. Many lie awake at night reliving moments of regret, words they wish they had spoken, chances they missed, forgiveness they withheld. Their bodies may be still, but their minds are restless battlegrounds. Fatigue follows them into the day because they have yet to set down the burdens of yesterday. This is not merely psychology, it is a spiritual dilemma. Ancient words echo across centuries. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That invitation does not speak only to those who have worked 12-hour shifts. It speaks to those tormented by burdens that were never theirs to bear in the first place. Resentment, comparison, fear of the future, shame for the past, these are not weights handed to you by God. They are chains forged by a restless world and willingly clasped around our own wrists. There is something tragic about this weariness because it so often goes unnoticed. We treat exhaustion as normal, as though a constant fog is simply the price of living in the modern age. We drink more coffee, scroll more feeds, try one more productivity hack. Yet all the while we carry rocks in our backpack that no latte or planner will ever lighten. Until we recognize what is draining us, we will continue to mistake restlessness for real living. Think of the countless comparisons we make in a single day. You wake up and glance at your phone. Someone has bought a new car. Someone else has announced an engagement. Another has lost 20 pounds. And you, before you've even risen from bed, feel smaller, slower, and less worthy. That heaviness you feel before breakfast has nothing to do with your body's lack of energy. It is the fatigue of envy, the exhaustion of comparison, and it is entirely optional. Yet you carry it as though it were your duty. The same is true of resentment. A grudge is perhaps the heaviest stone of all. Long after the offense has passed, long after the person who hurt you has gone on with their life, you continue to rehearse the wound. You nurse it like a fire, feeding it with kindling until it blazes again. Do you feel drained afterward? Of course you do. Your body cannot distinguish between the real battle and the remembered one. Each time you recall the slight, your nervous system releases stress hormones as though the event were happening anew. This is why resentment wearies us more than forgiveness ever could. To forgive is to drop the stone. To cling is to carry it forever. There is another kind of burden, anxiety about tomorrow. This, perhaps, is the most insidious. No one has yet lived tomorrow, and yet millions of people are already exhausted by it. A student fears failing before the exam is written. A worker fears losing a job before the notice is given. A parent fears their child's choices before those choices are even made. The irony is sharp. The future has not arrived, yet it is already consuming the present. C.S. Lewis once observed that God gives us daily bread, not tomorrow's bread. We are meant to live one day at a time. When we reach into tomorrow and try to carry its troubles prematurely, we discover why we are so weary. We were not built to live in multiple days at once. Psychologists call this anticipatory stress. It is the same phenomenon that makes public speakers sweat hours before they step on stage, or patients feel ill days before surgery. The body releases adrenaline, cortisol, and other stress hormones in response to imagined threats. Live this way for years, and your nervous system becomes a battlefield of invisible wars. No wonder so many collapse. But there is good news. You do not have to carry these things. They were never yours. The comparison that drains you belongs to someone else's life. The resentment that chains you belongs to someone else's choices. The fear of tomorrow belongs to a day that has not yet come. You are allowed to set them down. In fact, you were designed to. Your shoulders were crafted to carry responsibility, not resentment. Your heart was fashioned to love, not to endlessly compare. Your mind was created to seek wisdom, not to torment itself with every possible catastrophe that might never happen. The irony is that when you release these unnecessary weights, you do not become weaker, you become stronger. Think of the soldier who drops unnecessary gear in order to run faster. Think of the traveler who discards useless stones and discovers the joy of the journey. Energy floods back into the body once is no longer wasted on battles that do not need fighting. You may be wondering what this looks like in practice. For the teenager crushed by comparison, it might mean setting boundaries with social media, remembering that screens do not show reality, only carefully edited illusions. For the parent overwhelmed with anxiety, it might mean choosing to focus on what is within reach today, showing up to work, loving the family, doing the next right thing, while leaving tomorrow to tomorrow. For the elder haunted by regrets, it might mean accepting that the past cannot be rewritten, but peace can be chosen in this very moment. Each of these acts is a way of laying down the stone. Spiritual practices help here as well. Prayer is not only communion with God, it is surrender. To pray is to say, "This weight is too much for me. Take it." And in the quiet exchange, the soul feels lighter. Gratitude is another antidote. When you list what you are thankful for, you cannot simultaneously list what you envy. Gratitude shifts the focus from what you lack to what you already possess, and the burden eases. Forgiveness, though often the hardest act, is perhaps the most liberating. To forgive is not to excuse, but to set yourself free from the endless replay of injury. Science supports these ancient practices. Studies show that gratitude lowers cortisol, forgiveness reduces blood pressure, and prayer lowers anxiety levels. In other words, the soul's medicine is also the body's medicine. What prophets knew in faith, scientists now measure in labs. Both testify to the same truth: the soul and body are intertwined. Heal one, and you strengthen the other. You might think of this process as housekeeping for the heart. A house collects clutter over time: old boxes, broken items, stacks of unnecessary paper. Left unattended, the clutter overwhelms. But when you clear it out, you discover space, light, and freedom. In the same way, your soul gathers burdens it was never meant to carry. Regularly setting them down is not indulgence, it is survival. There is a deeper reason this matters. Fatigue from unnecessary burdens robs you of the strength to carry what truly matters. A parent too consumed with resentment may miss the joy of their children. A worker too obsessed with comparison may lose the energy to excel at their own calling. An elder too trapped in regret may fail to share the wisdom others desperately need. By carrying stones that are not ours, we have no hands left for the treasures that are. This, then, is one of the hidden reasons so many feel tired all the time. They wake not only with the natural demands of the day, but with the weight of yesterday and tomorrow piled upon them. They feel not only the tug of their own lives, but the imaginary tug of lives they were never meant to live. And this weight, though invisible, exhausts as surely as carrying anvils through the desert. To set down these burdens is not a single act, but a lifelong discipline. Each morning, each evening, you may have to remind yourself, this stone is not mine. This comparison is not mine. This regret is not mine. This anxiety belongs to tomorrow, and I live today. It is a practice of release, of trust, of humility. And as you practice it, you will find something remarkable. Energy returns. Joy returns. You discover that tiredness was not the inevitable condition of your existence. It was the result of carrying what you were never meant to carry. When you learn to travel light, you begin to live fully. Your steps grow lighter, your days more luminous. The burdens that truly are yours, love, responsibility, faith, service, become easier to carry because your arms are no longer full of stones. You will feel stronger not because the world has grown easier, but because your soul is no longer wasting itself on battles it was never meant to fight. This is why you feel tired all the time. And this is also why you don't have to stay tired. Set down the stones. Free your shoulders. Free your soul. Walk as you were meant to walk, unburdened, awake, alive. The body has a voice. It does not speak in words, but it speaks in signals. A flutter of the eyelids in the afternoon. A dull ache rising in the shoulders after hours hunched at a desk. The sudden heaviness in the legs when you try to climb the stairs. For most of us, these signals are dismissed, drowned out by the relentless drumbeat of modern life. We ignore them, numb them, push them aside, and then ask ourselves why we feel so unbearably tired all the time. The truth is simple yet piercing. The body is pleading for respect, and we have stopped listening. Across the United States, fatigue has become as common as the morning coffee we gulp down to fight it. Adults laugh about how little sleep they get, as if exhaustion were a badge of honor. Teenagers stay awake until 2 in the morning, bathed in the glow of screens, then drag themselves to school half awake. Even the elderly, who once understood the rhythms of rest and work, find themselves caught in a cycle of late-night television or endless scrolling, their natural patterns disrupted. What we call tired is often nothing more than our body waving a white flag, begging us to return to the rhythms it was designed for. The body is not a machine. It was not built to be pushed endlessly without pause. It is a living, breathing temple, delicately balanced, finely tuned. When treated with reverence, it rewards us with strength, clarity, and vitality. When neglected, it turns against us with fatigue, illness, and despair. Yet our culture praises speed over stillness, productivity over peace, and achievement over alignment. In this upside-down world, rest is seen as weakness, and exhaustion is celebrated as proof of dedication. No wonder so many wake each day already drained. Sleep is one of the body's loudest requests, yet it is the one we resist most fiercely. The average American sleeps nearly 2 hours, less than people did just a century ago. Artificial light, late-night entertainment, and the myth of hustle culture have stolen those sacred hours. Science shows that even a single night of reduced sleep alters the immune system, raises stress hormones, and weakens the mind's ability to focus. Over weeks and months, the damage compounds: weight gain, heart strain, mood swings, and a fog that no energy drink can pierce. Yet instead of honoring the body's plea for rest, we reach for caffeine, sugar, or distraction, all of which mask the fatigue for a fleeting moment before deepening it. It is not only sleep we deny. Nutrition has become another battlefield where the body's cries are ignored. The body thrives on whole living foods, fruits, vegetables, grains, proteins that fuel rather than deplete. Yet many of us live on fast food, packaged snacks, and endless streams of soda. These may quiet hunger, but they do not satisfy the body's deeper need for nourishment. The result is a cycle of spikes and crashes, leaving us weary, not from lack of food, but from the wrong kind of food. A car given the wrong fuel will sputter and stall. So too will a body forced to survive on chemical substitutes for real sustenance. Movement is another form of respect. The body was designed to move, to stretch, to walk, to bend, to dance. Yet countless hours are spent seated in cars at desks in front of screens. Muscles stiffen, circulation slows, lungs grow shallow, and the body responds with lethargy. Fatigue creeps in not because we have done too much, but because we have done too little. A walk in the fresh air, a few minutes of stretching, even standing and breathing deeply, these small acts awaken energy that the body longs to release. But instead, we often choose stillness of the wrong kind, sitting passively while the body begs for motion. There's also the silent toll of stress. The body was built to handle short bursts of stress, to face danger, and then recover in safety. Yet modern life traps us in a constant state of low-level alarm. Bills, deadlines, arguments, notifications, all keep the body's alarm system switched on. Cortisol and adrenaline surge without pause, flooding the bloodstream with signals of danger. Over time, this unrelenting storm wears down the heart, the immune system, and the very cells of the body. Fatigue becomes chronic, not because of what the body cannot do, but because it is never allowed to rest from the onslaught. Across all ages, the story is the same. The teenager who sacrifices sleep for late-night scrolling is as weary as the executive who burns the candle at both ends. The mother who skips meals to keep pace with her family's needs is as drained as the retiree who numbs loneliness with late-night television. The body does not distinguish between ages or roles. It simply responds to how it is treated. When ignored, it falters. When respected, it flourishes. This is where divine wisdom enters the conversation. Ancient texts remind us that the body is a temple. A temple is not meant to be desecrated or neglected, but honored. Rest was built into creation itself. 6 days of work were followed by a day of rest, not as an afterthought, but as a pattern for life. To honor the body with rest, nourishment, and balance is not indulgence. It is obedience to the rhythm woven into the fabric of existence. To disrespect the body is to rebel against the very design we were given. Consider the words of C.S. Lewis, who observed that we are not souls trapped in bodies, but rather creatures who are both body and soul. The two cannot be separated without damage. A weary body drags down the spirit. A neglected body becomes a prison for the mind. To treat the body with disdain is to deny part of what it means to be fully human. Respecting the body, on the other hand, gives strength to the soul. When the body is rested, fed, and cared for, the mind is sharper, the heart more open, and the spirit more alive. There is a psychological dimension as well. Studies reveal that people who prioritize rest, healthy food, and exercise report greater happiness and purpose. Depression and anxiety often lessen when the body is treated with kindness. A clear mind and a balanced mood are not only gifts of the spirit, but fruits of a body respected. Neglect leads to despair. Respect leads to resilience. The tragedy is that many ignore these truths until the body breaks. A teenager collapses from exhaustion after years of sleepless nights. An adult develops chronic illness after decades of ignoring stress. An elder loses vitality long before their time. Only when the body shouts through sickness do we listen, though it had been whispering all along. Fatigue is often that whisper, an early warning that we are pushing beyond what the body can sustain. If ignored, the whisper grows into a shout. If honored, the whisper fades, replaced by strength. What does it mean to honor the body in a world that demands so much? It does not require grand gestures. It begins with small choices, choosing to go to bed earlier rather than losing yourself in endless scrolling, choosing water instead of soda, choosing a walk in the fresh air instead of another hour slumped in a chair. It means listening when the body aches, allowing rest when needed, moving when stagnant, nourishing when hungry with food that heals instead of harms. These choices accumulate, building a life where fatigue is not the norm, but the exception. Respecting the body also means refusing to glorify exhaustion. It is not noble to brag about sleeping 4 hours a night. It is not heroic to sacrifice health for productivity. True strength is not shown by how much we can abuse our bodies, but by how well we can care for them so they serve us for the long journey. A wise person does not burn out their candle in a single night. They tend the flame so it shines brightly for years to come. Joy is intertwined with this respect. When the body is honored, energy rises, and with energy comes delight. Laughter is fuller when lungs are strong. Work is more satisfying when the mind is clear. Relationships are deeper when fatigue does not dull every moment. By treating the body as sacred, we open the door to a life not only longer but richer. Fatigue, then, is not always a curse to fight against. Sometimes it is a gift, a signal, a gentle nudge that something is out of balance. When you feel tired all the time, it is not only a sign of weakness. It is your body whispering that it has been ignored. To heed that whisper is wisdom. To silence it is folly. In learning to respect the body, we not only regain strength, but rediscover the fullness of life itself. There are many kinds of hunger, and not all of them announce themselves with a rumbling stomach. Some live quietly beneath the surface, masked by habits, disguised by distractions, hidden even from the person who carries them. A boy eats dinner and still feels restless, pacing through the kitchen cabinets long after his plate is clean. A woman working late at her desk unwraps candy after candy, not because her body needs sugar, but because something else inside her is gnawing. An older man wakes in the middle of the night and turns on the television, not out of hunger for food, but because silence itself feels like an empty stomach he doesn't know how to fill. This is the poison of hidden hunger. It saps strength, steals energy, and leaves people exhausted without ever understanding why. Nutrition is the obvious layer, the one we can all see. The shelves of every gas station and supermarket glimmer with foods that promise satisfaction but deliver emptiness. Chips, sodas, pastries, fried meals, they fill the mouth with flavor and the stomach with volume, but the cells remain starved for true nourishment. The body is tricked into thinking it has been fed, only to collapse when the borrowed energy disappears. That crash is often called fatigue, yet at its core, it is malnutrition wearing a mask. We live in a land where calories are abundant but nutrients are scarce, and the result is a population weary in body and spirit. Science has shown how destructive this cycle is. Sugar surges flood the bloodstream with quick energy, but within an hour, insulin rushes in to sweep it away, leaving the body in a trough of exhaustion. The mind grows foggy, the eyelids heavy, the mood unstable. Processed foods rich in artificial chemicals trigger inflammation, weakening the body systems and stealing vitality. A diet of constant stimulation through junk food mirrors a life of constant stimulation through noise and screens. Both promise fullness, both deliver depletion. Fatigue is not an accident in this context. It is the body's protest against being fed what cannot sustain it. Yet hunger is never only about the body. There are deeper hungers that no plate of food can satisfy. People crave meaning, belonging, beauty, and love, and when these are absent, they try to fill the void with substitutes. Some eat endlessly because food is comfort when companionship is absent. Some bury themselves in work because productivity is easier than facing the ache of loneliness. Some drown in entertainment because silence reveals how starved their soul has become. Fatigue grows out of this hidden hunger because no amount of substitution can satisfy what the soul truly needs. The body grows weary trying to digest emptiness. A child may reach for candy because it tastes sweet, but behind that craving could be a longing for affection or security. A teenager may scroll endlessly through feeds, consuming faces and lives, not because they are hungry for information, but because they hunger for identity and affirmation. An adult may find themselves lost in endless shopping, television, or drinking, not because they need those things, but because there is a hunger for connection, joy, or purpose that has been silenced for too long. The poison of hidden hunger is that it disguises itself so well, offering substitutes that seem to work for a moment, only to leave behind greater emptiness than before. There's a spiritual thread woven through all of this. Ancient wisdom declared that man does not live by bread alone. Bread feeds the body, but the soul has its own diet. It longs for communion, for truth, for beauty that transcends the fleeting pleasures of taste or entertainment. Without this deeper nourishment, the soul withers even if the body is well fed. This is why so many in wealthy nations, surrounded by food, medicine, and opportunity, still wake up exhausted. The cupboards are full, but the spirit is starving. Think of a garden. If you water only the surface but never nourish the roots, the leaves may appear green for a short while, but eventually they droop. The same is true of us. We feed the surface with stimulation, with sugar, with noise, with shallow pleasures, but neglect the roots, the deeper hungers of the heart. Hidden hunger creeps in quietly, draining strength until life feels dull and exhausting. A well-fed hunger looks like joy, creativity, and resilience. A neglected hunger looks like fatigue, emptiness, and despair. There are countless examples in daily life. A college student chases caffeine to push through finals week. The energy spike comes, the crash follows, and the cycle repeats. Beneath the caffeine is not only a tired body, but a hungry heart longing for balance, for peace, for wisdom that no drink can provide. A parent juggling work and family obligations grabs fast food every night, running on convenience rather than care. Their body groans with exhaustion, but beneath that groan is the hunger for stillness, for shared meals, for the taste of life unhurried. A retiree, surrounded by free time, fills the hours with television, numbing the loneliness, but never curing it. The body grows sluggish, the mind dull, not because of age alone, but because the hunger for community, for laughter, for purpose is unanswered. Psychologists have pointed out how unmet emotional needs create physical fatigue. When belonging, meaning, or love are absent, the brain interprets it as a threat, triggering stress responses. The nervous system shifts into survival mode, even in the absence of danger. Living day after day in that state wears down the body, leaving a constant undercurrent of exhaustion. Hidden hunger is not only about food, but about the soul's cry for what it was created to enjoy. This is why some people can work 12-hour days and still feel alive, while others work only a few hours and feel completely drained. It is not merely the quantity of labor, but whether the deeper hungers of life are being met. When purpose fuels action, energy rises. When emptiness drives action, fatigue multiplies. Hidden hunger poisons because it fools us into thinking we are living, while in truth, we are starving slowly inside. What, then, does it look like to answer these hidden hungers? It begins with honesty. To pause long enough to ask, what am I truly hungry for? If the body is weary despite food and sleep, the hunger may not be physical at all. Perhaps it is hunger for rest that restores, not just sleep, but peace. Perhaps it is hunger for forgiveness, to be released from the weight of old guilt. Perhaps it is hunger for meaning, to know that your life is not just a repetition of empty days, but a story with purpose. When these hungers are acknowledged, substitutes lose their power. The craving for sugar may fade when joy is restored through gratitude and laughter. The endless scrolling may lose its grip when identity is found in something deeper than likes or followers. The fatigue that never lifts may lighten when the soul is fed with prayer, beauty, service, and love. True nourishment touches the whole being. Scientists have begun to affirm what saints and poets have long declared. Acts of kindness flood the brain with dopamine and oxytocin, lifting mood and restoring energy. Prayer and meditation calm the nervous system, lowering stress and renewing focus. Gratitude literally rewires neural pathways, helping the mind to dwell on abundance rather than lack. These are foods of the soul, and they are as essential as bread and water. Without them, hidden hunger festers. With them, vitality returns. This is why some of the most radiant people are not those with the best diets, the most sleep, or the easiest lives, but those who have discovered how to feed their souls. A grandmother rocking her grandchild, a teacher who sees meaning in every lesson taught, a young person pouring their heart into art or service. These lives shine with energy even when physically tired. Their hidden hunger is met, and so their strength multiplies. Fatigue, in many cases, is a signal that something deeper is missing. It is not always a problem to be solved with pills or stimulants, but a whisper from within saying, "Feed me what I truly need." To ignore that whisper is to live half alive, carrying on in a fog of exhaustion. To heed it is to rediscover joy, purpose, and strength. Hidden hunger poisons because it blinds us. We chase substitutes, thinking they are enough, while the real need remains untouched. We grow tired not because life is too heavy, but because life without nourishment is unbearable. The good news is that hidden hunger can be healed. By honoring the body with real food, by honoring the soul with truth, beauty, and love, by honoring the heart with forgiveness and belonging, we awaken from the fog. Energy returns not as a trickle, but as a river. This is why you feel tired all the time. Not because you are weak, but because you are hungry in ways you may not yet recognize. Your soul is calling for more than empty calories and shallow pleasures. It is calling for nourishment that endures. To answer that call is to step out of weariness and into life abundant. There's a kind of tiredness that sleep cannot fix. You can lie down for 8 hours, even 10, and wake up with your body rested but your mind still restless. It is a fatigue that lingers like smoke in the air after a fire. This tiredness often comes from the absence of stillness. Life today does not permit silence, does not permit pause, does not permit space for the soul to breathe. We are surrounded by noise, and in that constant hum, the inner self collapses under strain. From the moment the alarm clock rings, most people are already drowning in stimulation. The first sound of the morning is not birdsong or prayer, but the buzz of a phone. Notifications pour in, headlines flash, emails stack up. Before feet even touch the ground, the heart races with an artificial urgency. The body may still be under the covers, but the mind is sprinting, dragged into battles it was never meant to fight before the day has even begun. That pace does not stop until nightfall, and even then, the glow of the screen carries the noise into what should be sacred hours of rest. There's almost no room left for stillness in such a world. Children grow up surrounded by constant sound, television in the background, music blasting in headphones, games flashing across screens. Teenagers scroll for hours, caught in an endless loop of images that demand attention but never bring peace. Adults bounce from task to task, meeting to meeting, phone call to phone call, believing that stillness is wasted time. Even the elderly, who once found quiet evenings by the fire or the porch, now fill their nights with the noise of endless channels and commentary. At every stage of life, the war against stillness rages, and fatigue is the spoils of defeat. Stillness is not inactivity. Stillness is not laziness. Stillness is the oxygen of the soul. Just as the lungs need air between breaths, the mind needs silence between thoughts, the heart needs peace between demands. Without it, the human being becomes like a violin string pulled too tight, fragile, tense, one wrong touch away from snapping. Fatigue grows not from what is done in stillness, but from what is lost without it. Science has revealed what the ancients already knew. The brain addicted to constant stimulation begins to crave more, flooding itself with dopamine at every ping and refresh. Yet the cost is steep. The more stimulation received, the shorter the attention span becomes, the harder it is to focus, the quicker the energy drains. A restless mind is like a forest that never sleeps, burned out by the constant spark of fire. Neuroscientists speak of cognitive fatigue, where the brain simply cannot sustain clarity because it is never given rest. People mistake this for laziness, but it is not laziness. It is exhaustion born of overstimulation. There is a deeper wound, though one that science alone cannot describe. Stillness is where the soul meets itself. Without quiet, we lose the ability to hear the deeper truths of our own lives. Many people fear stillness because in the silence, their real hunger, their real sorrow, their real longing speaks. Noise becomes a shield, a way to escape from what lies within. Yet in running from stillness, we run from healing. The soul cannot mend in chaos. It mends in quiet. When that quiet is absent, weariness takes root in places no medicine can reach. Think of the teenager who cannot endure 5 minutes without music or scrolling. They are not simply avoiding boredom. They are avoiding the ache of identity, the question of who they are when the noise stops. Think of the adult who must always keep a television on in the background. The silence would force them to face the emptiness in their heart, the dissatisfaction in their work, the distance in their marriage. Think of the elder who fills every quiet hour with chatter, not because they love the sound, but because silence reminds them of loneliness or regret. The war against stillness is waged in every age, and the fatigue it brings is universal. Spiritual traditions across centuries treated stillness as sacred. Monks withdrew into silence not to escape the world, but to hear it more clearly. Prophets listened in solitude for the voice of God. Poets sat by rivers and under trees, waiting for words to rise from the stillness. Stillness was not seen as empty, but as full, as the space where meaning entered. To lose stillness is to lose access to that sacred space. Fatigue follows because the soul is malnourished, starved of the very food it was created to enjoy. There is something tragic in how stillness is mocked today. To sit quietly is seen as wasting time. To turn off the phone is seen as falling behind. Productivity has become the highest virtue, and stillness does not produce. Yet in truth, stillness produces everything of value. It produces clarity. It produces peace. It produces strength that does not collapse under the weight of noise. Without it, the human being is reduced to a machine that eventually burns out no matter how much fuel is poured in. The fatigue that comes from overstimulation is not loud. It does not roar. It creeps. It begins as mild restlessness, then grows into distraction, then into constant exhaustion. People describe it as brain fog, as inability to focus, as feeling drained without knowing why. It is the result of being flooded with signals but starved of silence. The body does not thrive in chaos. The spirit does not bloom in noise. They need stillness as surely as they need air and water. This war against stillness has consequences that ripple far beyond fatigue. Relationships suffer when no one can sit quietly with each other. Creativity suffers when the mind is too cluttered to dream. Spiritual life suffers when there is no silence to pray, to reflect, to listen. A culture without stillness becomes a culture without wisdom, and individuals without stillness become individuals without strength. Fatigue is the body's way of warning that something vital has been lost. Yet stillness can be reclaimed. It does not require abandoning responsibilities or retreating into mountains. It begins with small acts of resistance against the noise. A morning without a phone for the first half hour. A walk without headphones, listening to the rhythm of breath and footsteps. A meal eaten without distraction, tasting each bite as though it were the first. A few minutes of prayer or meditation, allowing the mind to rest in the presence of something greater. These are not luxuries. They are necessities. In them, stillness returns, and with it, energy that no stimulant can imitate. The body knows when stillness has been found. The heartbeat slows, the breath deepens, the mind clears. Fatigue lifts not because the day is lighter, but because the self is no longer drowning in noise. This is not mystical alone. It is biological. The nervous system moves from fight or flight into rest and repair. Hormones shift, muscles release, healing begins. To practice stillness is to unlock the body's own medicine designed into it from the beginning. Think of the times when you have felt most alive. It was not in the rush of noise, but in the quiet moments. Watching a sunset without distraction, sitting by, the ocean listening to waves, holding the hand of someone you love in silence. These are not grand achievements, yet they leave you full rather than empty. That is the gift of stillness. It restores energy by grounding you in the present moment, reminding you of the beauty that is always near, but often drowned out. The war against stillness is real, but it is not unwinnable. Each person must choose whether to surrender to the noise or to reclaim silence as sacred. Fatigue will always shadow those who refuse stillness because the body and soul were never made for constant stimulation. Peace belongs to those who dare to pause. Joy belongs to those who make space for quiet. Strength belongs to those who listen to the whispers within rather than the shouts without. This, too, is why you feel tired all the time. You are not only deprived of sleep or food, you are deprived of stillness. Your body longs for it, your soul cries out for it, yet the world around you wages war against it. To choose stillness is to step out of the battle, to lay down arms, to return to the rhythm for which you were created. And when you do, you will discover a new kind of energy, one not built on adrenaline or caffeine, but on peace. The fatigue will not vanish overnight, but day by day, stillness will heal what noise has broken. To be still is not to stop living, is to start living deeply. In that stillness, strength is renewed, clarity is born, and the tiredness that has haunted you begins to dissolve. What the world calls wasted time, your soul knows as restoration. And if you can reclaim it, you will no longer walk through life weary but awake. There is a peculiar kind of exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from doing what does not matter. A person can run all day, lift heavy burdens, face long hours of work, and still end the day with energy if they know why they did it. Another person can spend the same day sitting in comfort, moving from one small task to another, never straining their body, and yet feel as if they have been crushed beneath a mountain. The difference is not in the labor, but in the meaning. Fatigue is not always physical. Often it is the soul crying out under the weight of purposelessness. Across every generation, people have wrestled with the question of why they exist. For some, the answer comes through faith, for others through vocation, for others through family, art, or service. When that answer is absent, something inside begins to collapse. The human being is not content with survival alone. Bread keeps the body alive, but does not keep the spirit awake. When there is no greater reason to rise each morning, the hours stretch like a desert, each step heavier than the last. This is why so many wake up tired before the day has even begun. Psychologists have studied this truth and given it names like existential fatigue or anhedonia. Viktor Frankl, who endured the concentration camps, wrote that those who could find meaning, even in suffering, were able to endure conditions that would have destroyed others. He saw men who were starving, freezing, beaten daily, yet they survived because they held on to a purpose, a loved one waiting for them, a dream not yet finished, a conviction that life had not abandoned them. At the same time, he saw others collapse, not because their bodies failed, but because their will to live dissolved when purpose was lost. Fatigue without purpose is deadly. In modern life, this plays out in quieter, subtler ways. Think of the office worker who spends decades filing reports that no one truly reads, answering emails that vanish into digital dust, attending meetings where nothing meaningful happens. Each day drains them not because the work is too hard, but because it feels hollow. The paycheck feeds the body but starves the soul. Or think of the student who studies subjects they care nothing for, driven by expectations rather than passion. They sit at the desk for hours, eyes on the page, mind drifting away, every task feeling heavier than it is. Their fatigue is not from study alone, but from the absence of a reason that ignites their heart. This fatigue is not limited to careers or school. A parent without a sense of why they are guiding their children can feel crushed by the daily chores of family life. A retiree who once lived with purpose through work may find themselves suddenly drained when the routines of labor end. Young people can lose themselves in endless entertainment because nothing seems to call them higher. At every age, when purpose is missing, tiredness multiplies. Energy is not only the product of calories and rest. It is the spark of meaning that sets the human spirit aflame. The divine voice throughout history has reminded humanity that vision is essential to life. Ancient scripture declares, "Without vision, the people perish." Not perish in body alone, but in vitality, in spirit, in hope. A man with food, water, and shelter but without vision walks like a ghost through his days. A woman with comfort and safety but without meaning drags her feet as if chained. People often confuse comfort with life, but comfort without purpose is suffocating. The most comfortable prisons are still prisons. The soul longs for something to aim at, something greater than the self. That longing explains why even the wealthiest and most entertained societies still feel a deep fatigue. When everything is handed over, food delivered at the door, information available instantly, entertainment on every device, one would expect energy to increase. Yet many are more tired than ever. The reason is simple. Energy does not come from ease, but from purpose. Ease without meaning becomes heaviness. A mountain climber is exhausted at the peak, yet their heart sings because they know why they climbed. A person who has done nothing all day but scroll on a phone feels drained, not because of labor, but because of emptiness. There is also a subtle danger when people try to fill the void of purpose with distractions. Busyness is often used as a mask. If the calendar is full, if the hours are crowded, maybe the absence of deeper meaning will not be noticed. But deep down, the fatigue remains. The body may keep going, but the soul whispers that something is missing. Distraction is not purpose. Motion is not progress. And no matter how fast a person runs, if they are running on the wrong road, the exhaustion will always catch them. To understand this more clearly, consider how children play. A child can run in a field for hours, chasing butterflies, laughing with friends, exploring trees, and end the day brimming with joy. The same child asked to sit quietly for hours copying words they do not understand will slump, complain, and collapse in boredom. The difference is not in the physical energy required, but in the meaning behind the activity. Adults are no different. A person who loves their craft can work late into the night without feeling drained. A person who hates their work feels tired the moment they sit down. Purpose is the great multiplier of energy. There is also a moral weight to purposelessness. When life is seen as empty, fatigue often leads to despair. People begin to ask why they should keep going at all. Depression takes root not only in chemical imbalances, but in the absence of hope, the absence of a reason to continue. When people lose purpose, even small tasks feel unbearable. Dishes pile up not because they are too heavy, but because the spirit behind them is gone. Work deadlines feel like chains, not because the task is impossible, but because there's no vision that gives the task meaning. Some try to resolve this fatigue by chasing pleasure. If life feels empty, maybe entertainment, wealth, or fame will fill the gap. But pleasure is a temporary stimulant. It excites, then leaves the soul emptier than before. That emptiness deepens the fatigue. C.S. Lewis once wrote that joy is the serious business of heaven, but he drew a line between joy and mere pleasure. Pleasure passes quickly, but joy springs from meaning, from alignment with something eternal. People who chase only pleasure often find themselves more tired because they are feeding the soul sugar instead of substance. The great paradox is that purpose often requires sacrifice, yet it gives more energy than it takes. A parent rising at dawn to feed a newborn is physically exhausted, yet the love for the child provides a strength that surprises them. A volunteer who spends hours serving the poor may ache in body, yet leaves with a sense of fullness. A teacher who invests in students feels drained at times, but when a child blossoms under their care, the fatigue transforms into reward. Sacrifice without meaning crushes. Sacrifice with purpose strengthens. That is why soldiers will endure hardship for their country, why activists will march through the night for justice, why artists will labor through rejection to create something beautiful. Purpose lifts what would otherwise crush. The fatigue of purposelessness is dangerous because it is quiet. It does not always announce itself with tears or cries. It settles like dust on the soul, dulling each day until life feels heavy without knowing why. People call it burnout, call it boredom, call it stress, but at the root, it is often the absence of a clear reason to live fully. This is why so many seek constant stimulation, because silence exposes the lack of meaning. The distraction is easier than the truth. But no amount of distraction will heal the fatigue of purposelessness. Only meaning will. To reclaim purpose requires courage. It demands asking the deepest questions. What am I here for? What do I believe matters more than comfort, more than ease, more than distraction? For some, that purpose is faith, a conviction that life is designed by God and meant for His glory. For others, it is service, creating a better world for those who come after. For some, it is family, nurturing love that outlasts their own years. For others, it is art, the pursuit of beauty, or knowledge, the pursuit of truth. The form of purpose may vary, but without one, the weight of fatigue will never lift. This does not mean that purpose must be grand or celebrated. A person does not need to change the world to live with meaning. A farmer who grows food with love, a nurse who tends to the sick, a janitor who keeps schools clean so children can learn in safety. Each of these is living with purpose. What matters is not the size of the task, but the reason behind it. Even the smallest acts, done with purpose, bring strength. Without purpose, even the greatest achievements feel empty. When people rediscover purpose, something changes in their eyes. The same work that once felt unbearable becomes lighter. The same hours that once dragged past more swiftly. Energy returns not from more sleep or better food alone, but from the fire of meaning. Purpose is the antidote to fatigue that drains so many. It does not remove hardship, but it gives the strength to endure it. It does not erase weariness, but it transforms it into joy. So much of the modern exhaustion across America is not from overwork, but from under-purpose. People chase tasks without vision, live days without meaning, consume endlessly without creating, and wonder why they are so tired. The body cannot thrive when the soul is starved. To find rest, one must find reason. To find energy, one must find purpose. Without it, no amount of sleep, no diet, no exercise, no entertainment will truly restore. With it, even hardship becomes a source of vitality. This is why you feel tired all the time. The absence of purpose presses down on the spirit like a weight that no sleep can lift. The cure is not found in doing less or in doing more. It is found in doing what matters. It is found in discovering the vision that lights your path, the love that pulls you forward, the truth that anchors you. Once that is found, fatigue becomes a companion that reminds you of your effort, not an enemy that drains you of life. With purpose, tiredness may come, but will be the tiredness of a day well lived, not the weariness of a life unlived. There is a kind of weariness that does not come from hunger or lack of rest or even the weight of responsibility. It is the weariness that comes from living without joy, not the fleeting thrill of entertainment or the quick escape of pleasure, but the deeper, gentler current that runs through life when the heart remembers how to delight. This current is what I call the river of joy, and many today have forgotten it. When that river dries up, fatigue seeps into every corner of existence. Work becomes heavier, days grow dull, and even the simple tasks of living feel harder than they ought to be. Think of the faces you see on a crowded street. People rushing from one place to another, coffee in hand, eyes on their phones, brows furrowed, as if each step is a burden. Rarely do you see laughter burst forth. Rarely do you hear singing under the breath. Rarely do you witness that sparkle in the eyes that tells you someone is alive with joy. It is not that these people are starving or homeless or deprived of necessities. Many live in comfort, but comfort without joy is like a feast eaten without taste, filling the stomach while leaving the soul untouched. Joy is not something the world can simply deliver like a package. It is not sold in a store, not bottled in medicine, not hidden in wealth. True joy is something older, something planted in the human soul by design. It rises when we live in tune with love, gratitude, connection, wonder. It flows when the heart notices beauty, when it delights in kindness, when it tastes the sweetness of being alive. Without it, fatigue settles like dust on every moment. Science has confirmed what the poets always knew. Laughter lowers stress hormones and strengthens the immune system. Gratitude rewires the brain, improving sleep and mental clarity. Acts of kindness release endorphins, filling the body with vitality. Joy is not a luxury, it is a form of fuel. Yet in a culture obsessed with productivity and consumption, joy is often dismissed as frivolous, as something to pursue after the important things are done. But without joy, even the important things lose their meaning, and fatigue grows heavier by the day. Consider a child at play. They run for hours, climb, shout, laugh, tumble, and by the end of the day, though their body is tired, they glow with energy. The joy of play replenishes them as quickly as they spend themselves. Now think of an adult sitting at a desk for hours, staring at a screen, drained by tasks they feel nothing for. They may move little, but by the end of the day they are exhausted. The difference is joy. A child is fueled by it, an adult has forgotten it. Fatigue grows in that forgetting. There's also a spiritual depth to this truth. Ancient wisdom says, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." Strength is not only muscle or endurance. Strength is the ability to rise each day with hope, to keep going when the weight of life presses down. Joy gives that strength. Joy roots the soul in something eternal, something that cannot be shaken by circumstance. When joy is lost, strength is lost, and fatigue takes its place. It is easy to confuse joy with mere amusement. Amusement is what we chase when we scroll endlessly, binge television, or fill silence with noise. It numbs for a while, but does not heal. Amusement distracts, but it does not restore. That is why people can spend hours entertained and still feel tired afterward. Joy is different. Joy is alive. It restores even as it asks nothing. It is what you feel when you stand before a sunrise, when you laugh uncontrollably with a friend, when you sing, when you forgive, when you love. It is not escape, it is encounter. And in that encounter, the soul finds rest. Think of the moments when joy surprised you. Perhaps it was the sound of your child's laughter, so pure it dissolved your troubles for a moment. Perhaps it was a song that caught you off guard and stirred something ancient inside you. Perhaps it was the beauty of autumn leaves or the smell of rain on dry earth. In those moments, you were alive again, and the fatigue that had seemed so heavy lifted for a while. That was the river of joy flowing again, reminding you of what you were made for. The tragedy is that many stop seeking such moments. They become so wrapped in duty, worry, and distraction that they forget joy entirely. They treat it as optional, as a reward only for those who have finished their work. But joy is not a luxury, it is a necessity. To live without joy is to run a marathon without water, to fight a battle without armor. No wonder so many are tired. There are those who believe joy is impossible because life is filled with sorrow. And it is true. Sorrow visits every home, pain touches every life, loss finds every heart. But joy is not the absence of sorrow. Joy is what gives us strength to carry sorrow. It is the sunlight that breaks through even on the stormiest day. It is the courage to laugh in the midst of tears, the ability to find beauty even in brokenness. Those who have known great suffering often speak of joy more deeply than those who have lived in ease. They know that joy does not deny pain, it redeems it. Fatigue grows heavier when joy is absent because the soul has no balance. Life becomes only duty, only survival, only burden. But when joy is present, duty becomes sweeter, survival becomes celebration, burden becomes lighter. A family meal filled with laughter nourishes more than food alone. Work done with joy becomes play. Service offered with joy becomes privilege. Joy transforms the ordinary into sacred, and that transformation gives energy that no stimulant can match. You may wonder why joy feels so distant. Part of it is that the world today trains us to look everywhere except the present moment. We chase goals far ahead, regret mistakes far behind, compare ourselves endlessly to others, and in that restless chase, we miss the beauty right before us. Joy lives in the present. It is found in noticing, in gratitude, in presence. When life is always elsewhere, joy cannot flow, and fatigue fills the gap. Relearning joy requires slowing down enough to notice. It requires gratitude for what is already here, instead of endless hunger for what is not. It requires courage to laugh, even when life is not perfect, to celebrate small victories, to delight in simple things. Joy is not hidden, but it is overlooked. A child sees it easily because they are awake to wonder. Adults often close their eyes in busyness. The fatigue that comes from such blindness can only be healed by reopening the eyes to joy. This is not a sentimental call to ignore hardship. It is a reminder that joy is possible even within hardship. The farmer who sings while working the soil finds energy in the song. The nurse who laughs with a patient finds strength in that laughter. The grandmother who delights in her grandchild's smile finds youth in that delight. Joy is not an escape from reality. It is the strength to live reality more fully. Fatigue without joy can break a person. But joy, even in small doses, can lift them. A single moment of genuine joy can refresh more than hours of rest. That is why communities that celebrate together, sing together, dance together, often show resilience in ways wealthier, quieter societies do not. Joy is communal as much as it is personal. Shared joy multiplies, and in that multiplication, fatigue diminishes. If you feel tired all the time, it may not only be because of lack of rest, poor diet, or constant noise. It may be because you have forgotten the river of joy. You have allowed the world to convince you that joy is trivial, unnecessary, childish. But joy is strength. Joy is medicine. Joy is the reminder that life, for all its sorrow and struggle, is still worth delighting in. Without it, fatigue becomes inevitable. With it, energy returns like spring after winter. The invitation is simple, though not always easy. Remember joy. Remember how to laugh, how to sing, how to notice beauty. Remember gratitude for small things, for breath, for light, for love. Remember kindness, both given and received. These are not distractions from life. They are the river that carries life forward. If you can remember joy, you will not only feel less tired, you will feel more alive. This, too, is why so many are weary. They have cut themselves off from the river that was meant to flow through them. But the river has not dried up. It is waiting, always waiting, ready to rush back into the heart that opens to it. Once you taste it again, you will know the difference between mere survival and true living. And you will find that joy, not rest alone, is the cure for the tiredness that has haunted you. There comes a moment in every life when the question cannot be pushed aside any longer. Will you go on living half awake, dragging yourself through days that blur together, or will you choose to reclaim the strength, the joy, and the clarity that were always meant to be yours? Fatigue is not just about weak muscles or long hours. It is the quiet voice of your soul telling you that something essential has been neglected. You are not designed to live as a machine running on caffeine and deadlines. You were created to be alive in every sense, to feel wonder in your chest, to carry peace in your heart, to taste purpose in every breath. If you let the noise and the weight of this world drown out that call, the years will slip through your hands like sand, and you will wonder why life felt so heavy. But if you choose to rise, to guard your mind, to care for your body, to rest with wisdom, to protect your spirit, to feed your soul with truth and beauty, then fatigue will lose its chains on you. Strength will begin to grow where weakness once ruled. Joy will return where numbness once lingered. You may feel small right now, as though change is beyond you, but that is the greatest lie fatigue whispers. Change begins not in grand leaps, but in small, deliberate steps. Steps toward rest that heals, toward habits that sustain, toward gratitude that lifts, toward joy that fuels. Every step shifts the direction of your story. Do not wait for another year, another season, another miracle. Your life is too precious to drift in exhaustion. The chance is before you now, to awaken, to rise, to live differently. Let today be the day you decide that tiredness will no longer define you. Choose strength. Choose clarity. Choose the river of joy that was always yours to drink from. The weight you carry does not have to be the weight you keep. You are far more resilient than the fatigue that holds you. And when you begin to live awake, you will not only feel alive, you will remind others that they, too, can awaken. This is why you have felt tired all the time. And this is why you no longer have to.